Welcome to Rome. We invite you to join us for the sixth and final walk in this series through Rome, a city brimming with legends, historical events, and captivating stories. Our journey begins on the Tiber Island, a place that resembles a stone ship and has served as a healing sanctuary for centuries. From there, we will move to the ancient Forumborium, where we'll uncover the fascinating tales of Rome's oldest temples. Then, we'll head to the summit of the Aventine Hill, not just for its breathtaking views, but for the stories it holds. Finally, we'll conclude our walk near the Pyramid of Theseus, yet another example of the Romans' enduring fascination with Egypt. We present to you Roman legends from the Tiber to the Aventine. Are you ready to join us? Fantastic! Let's set off! Today's walk starts by the Tiber River, right where we left off in our previous route from the Vatican to the former Jewish ghetto. The Tiber River, the third longest in Italy, stretches about 250 miles. Its final 25 miles, flowing through the heart of Rome, are navigable by boat. The river is named after the ancient Italic god Tiberinus, who was believed to be the son of Janus, the two-faced god of beginnings, and the nymph Camisine. Our first stop is Tiber Island, located right in the middle of the river. It's one of only two islands on the river, and the only one situated in the heart of Rome. It's just under 1,000 feet long and 220 feet wide. Steeped in stories and legends, the island holds a rich history. One legend dates back to 509 BCE, during the reign of Rome's last king, Tarquin the Proud. When the oppressed citizens revolted against the tyrannical ruler, they overthrew and exiled him from the city, confiscating his property, including his farmlands. They threw bundles of wheat and sacks of grain into the Tiber, which settled at the river's shallowest point, mixing with mud and stones. Over the course of a year, these deposits formed the island. One of the most fascinating legends about Tiber Island in Rome connects its history to its unique shape, resembling a ship, and its association with medicine. According to the story, the Greek god of healing, Asclepius, known as Aesculapius in Rome, chose this island as his sanctuary. In 293 BCE, a deadly plague swept through the city, and the Romans, seeking divine intervention, sent envoys to the sanctuary of Asclepius in Epidaurus, Greece. There, they received a sacred snake, symbolizing the god himself. As the story goes, the snake escaped their ship near the island and made its home there. Miraculously, the plague subsided shortly after. To honor the god, the Romans built a temple on the island and used its natural spring for medicinal purposes. By the 1st century BCE, the island had been shaped and reinforced with travertine blocks to resemble a massive stone ship. They even added an Egyptian obelisk symbolizing the ship's mast, dedicated to Aesculapius. One way to access the island is via Ponte Fabrizio, the oldest bridge in Rome that still stands in its original form. Built in 62 BCE by Lucius Fabricius, the curator of public roads, the bridge was a testament to his craftsmanship. Roman law required Fabricius to personally guarantee the quality and durability of his work for at least 40 years. Remarkably, this solid structure has endured for over 2,100 years, a true testament to its extraordinary resilience. In medieval times, Ponte Fabrizio was called the Bridge of Suicides because of the number of people who jumped from it. Another nickname, the Bridge of Four Heads, comes from the sculpted heads on two pillars at the bridge's entrance. According to legend, Pope Sixtus V hired four prominent architects to restore the bridge, but their constant quarreling delayed the project. An enraged pope ordered them beheaded and had their heads joined and placed on the bridge as a warning to others. One of the first landmarks you'll encounter on Tiber Island is the Torre Caetani, a medieval defensive tower that was once part of the Caetani family's fortifications. It's also known as the Torre della Pulcella, or Tower of the Maid, due to a carved female head embedded in its wall. Behind the sculpture lies another Roman legend. It tells of a noblewoman from the 14th century imprisoned in the tower for refusing to marry a nobleman. She remained there waiting for her true love to return from war. Tragically, he never came back, and the story suggests she is still waiting, unaware of the passage of time. Although the carving dates back to the 1st century CE, the romantic and tragic tale continues to capture the imagination. In 1638, the tower was entrusted to the Franciscan Observant Fathers, who had been caretakers of the nearby church of St. Bartholomew the Apostle since 1536. In 1876, the majority of the tower became city property and was leased to the Hebrew University. On the opposite side of the tower stands the Church of St. John of God. It was built in the second half of the 16th century on the ruins of an older temple. This earlier temple was mentioned in a papal bull issued by Pope Benedict VIII in 1018. Inside the church is a 13th century painting called Our Lady of the Lamp, which is surrounded by legend. During a great flood of the Tiber in 1557, the painting, along with a votive lamp burning in front of it, was swept away by the current. When the painting was found in the river's waters, to everyone's amazement, the lamp was still burning. Today, a copy of this miraculous painting can be seen outside the church. As an intriguing detail, the church was also home to the Brotherhood of the Red Hoods, Sacconi Rossi, founded in the 17th century. The members of this brotherhood were responsible for recovering the bodies of drowned people from the Tiber and providing them with a burial in the church crypt. The entire right side of the island is occupied by the Fate Bene Fratelli Hospital, one of the finest medical institutions managed by the Brothers Hospitallers of St. John of God. The hospital was established in 1585 and its name refers to the phrase "do good, brothers," which the friars used to encourage passers-by to support their mission. The Brothers Hospitallers, also known as the Good Brothers, were founded by St. John of God, a pioneer of modern hospital care. The Fate Bene Fratelli Hospital played a significant role during epidemics, serving as a place of isolation and care for the sick. It was also the site of the first medical school specializing in infectious diseases. The bravery and ingenuity of the Italian doctors who worked there during the Holocaust were extraordinary. They invented and documented a highly contagious and entirely fictitious disease called Syndrome K, which frightened the Nazis and prevented them from entering the facility, thereby saving countless Jewish lives. On the left side of the island lies a small square, where until the 15th century an Egyptian obelisk once stood. Today the square is home to a monument with a small tower, adorned with statues of saints: Bartholomew, Francis of Assisi, Paulinus of Nola, and John of God. Just behind it stands the Basilica of St. Bartholomew the Apostle, one of Rome's titular churches. The basilica was built on the site of the ancient sanctuary of Asclepius. It was commissioned by Emperor Otto III in the 10th century, and its uniqueness lies in the relics housed within. Among them is the arm of St. Adalbert, gifted by the Polish king Bolesław the Brave. A few years later, the remains of the Apostle Bartholomew were also brought to the basilica. It is this saint, more familiar to the Romans, who is honored on the inscription on the church's facade. In this basilica rests the body of St. Bartholomew the Apostle. In 1999, under the initiative of Pope John Paul II, the basilica became a center for studying the history of Christian martyrdom in the 20th century and was designated as the memorial of the new martyrs. Inside the church, on the steps leading to the altar, there is a small marble wellhead, decorated with the images of Christ, Saint Adalbert, and Saint Bartholomew. It likely dates back to around the year 1000. Beneath it is an actual well, considered a legendary source of healing water that was once drawn from the sanctuary of Asclepius. You can cross over to Trastevere via the historic bridge of Gaius Cestius Epula. Built in 44 BCE, the bridge retains its original central arch, while the others were reconstructed in the late 19th century. At the center of the bridge, you'll find a heavily worn plaque commemorating a major renovation in 370 CE, for which travertine from the nearby theatre of Marcellus was used. Here ends the walk around Tiber Island. You can continue your stroll by combining it with route number 3 and choosing to explore Trastevere. However, we suggest returning to the right bank of the Tiber via the Palatine Bridge. From here, you can once again admire the stone prow of the ship that forms Tiber Island and the broken bridge, Ponte Rotto, which we discussed in the video for route number 3. Let's continue our walk at the Forum Boarium, a plain located between 3 hills, the Capitoline, Palatine, and Aventine. This area was significant due to its strategic location, near the river port. The name Forum Boarium originates from the meat and livestock market held here. In ancient times, it was also called Velarium, meaning wetlands, due to the swamps that once covered the area. However, it also had sacred significance. According to legend, Aeneas arrived here, and many years later, the wicker basket carrying the twins Romulus and Remus drifted to the spot, where they were found and nurtured by a she-wolf. Our next stop is the Basilica of Santa Maria in Cosmedin, reminiscent of the famous ancient monastery in Constantinople called Cosmidion. However, the list of sites here doesn't end with the basilica itself. On its portico lies a marble disc nearly 2,000 years old, measuring approximately 5 feet 9 inches in diameter. The disc features a round face of a faun with human-like features, prominent nose, eye sockets, hair, horns, and an open mouth. These are the famous Mouth of Truth, whose origins and purpose are surrounded by several theories. Most likely, it served as a sewer cover or a well lead in the Temple of Aesculapius. In the Middle Ages, the disc stood outside the church, and it became part of a ritual where accused individuals placed their hand in the faun's mouth to test their truthfulness. According to legend, the faun would bite off the hands of liars. In reality, there was likely an executioner behind the stone, ready to carry out the sentence on a hidden signal. The fear of the Mouth of Truth was so strong that it endured for centuries. To this day, tourists nervously place their hands into its open mouth. The Basilica of Santa Maria in Cosmedin is a small three-aisle building that was handed over to Greek monks expelled from Constantinople in 782 AD. The earlier church was built on the site of an ancient altar dedicated to Hercules, whose gilded statue can now be admired in the Capitoline museums. Opposite the church, on the other side of the street, stand small temples made of white marble. One of them, round and raised on a podium, is the Temple of Hercules Victor, considered the oldest marble building in Rome to have survived to this day. The temple dates back to 142 BCE and was dedicated to Hercules, also known as Oliverius, the patron of olive merchants. It is believed that Marcus Octavius Herenus, a wealthy merchant, likely involved in the olive trade, was the temple's benefactor. The structure has endured through the centuries thanks to a medieval shift in its dedication to the Christian martyr Saint Stephen, and later in the 17th century to Our Lady of the Sun, Mary of the Miracles image that shone with solar brilliance. Next to it stands the Temple of Portunus, the protective spirit of ports. Continuing onward and crossing the street leading from the Circus Maximus, we arrive at a charming little corner. Here stands the only preserved tetrapylon arch in Rome, a cubic structure with gates on all four sides. This is the Arch of Janus, built in the 4th century during the reign of Emperor Constantine. Its function remains uncertain. It might have been a triumphal arch commemorating Constantine's victory over Maxentius, or a structure designated for bankers operating at the Forum Boarium. Over the centuries, it also served as a shelter from rain for cattle traders and moneylenders at the nearby market. Although named the Arch of Janus, the structure is unrelated to the ancient Italian god Janus. Instead, the name derives from the Latin word ianus, meaning passage. The arch pillars were likely once adorned with statues, columns, and pediments. The entire structure, made of tough stone, was originally covered with marble, as evidenced by the holes left from the cladding. To this day, remnants of decorations survive on the keystones of the arches, depicting the goddess Minerva and Roma, and possibly Juno and Ceres. Right next to the Arch of Janus stands the Church of St. George in Velebra, almost encroaching upon a small gate called the Arch of the Money Changers. This gate was built in 204 AD at the initiative of cattle traders and bankers, who used it to access the Forum Boarium. The arch was dedicated to Emperor Septimius Severus and his family, likely in gratitude for privileges granted to the traders. The reliefs adorning the passageway depict sacrificial scenes involving the imperial family. On the right is Septimius Severus, and on the left is Caracalla. The figures of Caracalla's brother, father-in-law, and wife, along with their inscriptions, were removed after the condemnation of memory, ordered by Caracalla when he seized sole power after their assassination. The sacrificial scenes on the arch gave rise to a popular yet erroneous Roman saying: "Between the cow and the bull, you'll find a great treasure." Treasure hunters of the past interpreted this as a hint that a treasure was hidden inside the arch, leading to the drilling of numerous holes still visible today. The Church of St. George was built in the 7th century, likely initiated by Pope Leo II, who dedicated it to Saint Sebastian, a martyr who was believed to have died in this location. Half a century later, Pope Zachary brought the relics of St. George to the church, long before the saint's veneration was popularized by crusaders returning from the East. The Church of St. George captivates visitors with its unique atmosphere. Its floor is slightly lower than the street level, giving the impression of stepping through a portal to another time. The interior is adorned with columns of various styles and colors, indicating that they were sourced from different Roman temples. The old marble floor features alternating slabs arranged in striking pattern, and the coffered ceiling depicts stars on a soft blue-gray sky. The altar is decorated with the marble ciborium, and above it is a fresco portraying Christ, Saint George on horseback, Mary, Saint Peter, and Saint Sebastian. This masterpiece is attributed to Pietro Cavallini. Beneath the altar, the relics of St. George were kept: his head, sword, and a piece of his banner. On the night of July 27, 1993, a car bomb exploded in front of the church. Fortunately, there were no fatalities, but the blast severely damaged the 12th century portico and blew a hole in the church wall. In 1997, the church was restored to its former glory. The next part of our walk leads us to the southernmost hill of ancient Rome, the Aventine. However, in Rome, it's never just about reaching the destination. Here, the journey itself is just as significant. On our route, we encounter the oldest and largest circus of ancient Rome, the Circus Maximus. It occupies the massive valley of Murcia, situated between the Aventine and Palatine Hills. This is said to be the site of the legendary abduction of the Sabine women. The first circus was built here in the 6th century BCE by King Tarquinius Superbus. It served as the prototype for other circuses throughout the Roman Empire and could accommodate up to 150,000 spectators. At its peak, it hosted not only chariot races, but also other spectacles such as wild animal hunts, battle reenactments, and before the construction of the Colosseum, even gladiatorial games. The Circus Maximus operated for over 1,000 years, with the last races held in 549 CE, organized by Totila, king of the Ostrogoths. In the centuries that followed, the circus gradually fell into ruin. Its lower levels were flooded, and the area was progressively covered with debris, leaving the original track buried about 20 feet beneath the modern surface. Most of the ancient decorations were looted, and the two Egyptian obelisks that once adorned the circus toppled. It wasn't until 1587 that Pope Sixtus V excavated the obelisk, relocating one to St. John Lateran Square and the other to Piazza del Popolo. Today, the Circus Maximus is a vast open park, frequently used for concerts and outdoor events. Yet, as you stroll through the area, it's easier to imagine the grandeur and scale of this place during ancient Rome's heyday. On the opposite side of the circus, A unique view of the Palatine Hill unfolds. It's worth taking a moment to sit on one of the concrete benches and try to discern the outlines of the ruins that remain atop the hill. Let's now turn our backs to the Circus Maximus, as in front of us stands a marble monument of Giuseppe Mazzini, one of the key figures of the unification of Italy, who fought alongside Garibaldi for independence. The monument was erected in 1949 to commemorate the centenary of the proclamation of the Roman Republic in 1849. Let's continue through the gate and follow the uphill path that leads through the municipal rose garden. This garden occupies the site where in the 3rd century BCE the temple of the goddess Flora, Rome's patroness of vegetation, once stood. From the mid-17th century until 1934, this was a Jewish cemetery. To honor this necropolis, the rose garden pathways were designed in the shape of a 7-branched menorah. Let's proceed further up Via di Santa Sabina until we reach our next stop, the Orange Garden. Its entrance is guarded by a magnificent mascaron designed by Giacomo della Porta in 1593. The mascaron is an addition to an ancient basin which once stood on the Roman Forum and served as a watering trough for horses. It was moved to its current location in 1936. The Orange Garden spans an area of about 84,000 square feet and is home to bitter orange trees. While the fruits are edible, their tart flavor makes them more pleasing to the eye than to the palate. It's worth walking to the very end of the garden to enjoy a stunning panoramic view of Rome from the Aventine Terrace. Right next to the Orange Garden stands the Basilica of Saint Sabina, the most important Dominican church in the world. It was built in 425 AD by Peter of Illyria on the site of the former house of the Roman noblewoman Sabina, who converted to Christianity and was martyred for her faith in 126 AD. The interior of the basilica is austere, spacious, and minimalistic. It features 24 columns taken from the nearby temple of Juno Regina. On the floor, there is a mosaic tombstone of Muñoz de Zamora, who passed away in 1300 and was responsible for organizing and unifying the Dominican order's rules, initially established by Saint Dominic. In the left nave, you'll find the Baroque chapel of Saint Catherine of Siena, the patroness of Europe. The altar features a painting of the Madonna of the Rosary by Sassoferrato, while the vibrant dome is adorned with frescoes depicting scenes from the saint's life. On the opposite side lies the chapel of Saint Hyacinth Odrowąż, the first Polish Dominican and one of the patrons of Poland, who founded the Holy Trinity Monastery in Kraków. Adjacent to the basilica is the Dominican monastery, founded by Saint Dominic himself. One of its rooms, now converted into a chapel, was once home to a Dominican, the future Pope Pius V. He was the first pope to retain the Dominican habit after ascending to the papal throne, establishing the tradition of white papal robes. Exiting the Basilica of Saint Sabina and turning right, we arrive at the Basilica of Saints Boniface and Alexius. The entrance is through a small atrium with a modest fountain by the wall, featuring a statue of the Madonna and a triangular relief depicting the titular saints alongside an inscription from Emperor Tiberius' time. In the late 3rd century, this site housed a chapel that received the relics of Saint Boniface of Tarsus. In the 5th century, Saint Alexius was also buried here, as his family home was nearby. Alexius, the only son of a Roman senator, was married to a noble woman, but left his family home secretly on his wedding night to embark on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. For years he lived an ascetic life, giving away all he had and helping the poor. After a long journey, he returned to his family home, unrecognized, and was taken in as a pilgrim, allowed to live under the staircase of his own house. He spent nearly 18 years there, fetching water from a nearby well. According to legend, Alexius' identity was only revealed after his death, when his father found a letter he left behind or recognized the medallion he wore. At the moment of his death, all the bells in Rome began to ring, and his body exuded a sweet fragrance of myrrh. His tomb quickly became a pilgrimage site where many sick people were healed. In 1216, under Pope Honorius III, the saint's untouched body was discovered, prompting the construction of a new basilica with the Romanesque bell tower, which remains one of the most significant landmarks of the area. The basilica's three-aisled interior, dating back to the 13th century, impresses with its harmony and elegance. Its mosaic floor, created by the Cosmati family, resembles an ornate carpet, adding a unique charm to the space. Between the columns, one can spot an ancient wellhead, likely used by Saint Alexius to draw water while serving his family. On the southern side of the nave lies the 1693 tomb of Eleonora Boncompagni Borghese, designed by Giovanni Contini Battista. This Italian aristocrat from the influential Boncompagni family, connected to Pope Gregory XIII and the Borghese family, was renowned for her contributions to the arts and culture during the Baroque era. Beneath the altar lies a Romanesque crypt from the 10th century, housing the relics of St. Thomas of Canterbury. The crypt's walls are adorned with remarkable frescoes dating back to the 12th and 13th century. We return to our route and head right, arriving at the Knights of Malta Square, a place hiding yet another Roman surprise. Behind the Green Gate on the right lies a monastery where Benedictines settled as early as 939. In the mid-12th century, the site was taken over by the Templars, and after their order was dissolved by Pope Clement V, all their property was transferred to the Hospitallers, who later became the Sovereign Military Order of Malta. After Napoleon's occupation of Malta, the order found refuge here, on the Aventine Hill. You may recall mentioning that Vatican City is the smallest country in the world. However, the truth is that the smallest sovereign state is the Sovereign Military Order of Malta. Its territory lies behind the gate, largely hidden from view, and access is extremely limited. Yet, there's a tradition that attracts visitors, peeking through the keyhole in the gate. If you're lucky, you might not only see this place through the keyhole, but also through an open gate. The view behind the gate is stunning. A tree-lined path leading to the perfectly framed dome of St. Peter's Basilica. Remarkably, this scene spans three countries: Italy, the Order of Malta, and Vatican City. The magic of this spot is truly breathtaking. Leaving the Aventine, we head downhill, moving straight ahead. Our walk is nearing its end, but before we reach the famous Pyramid of Cestius, we'll pause at a serene and peaceful place: the non-Catholic cemetery, also known as the Cemetery of Foreigners and Artists. The non-Catholic cemetery was established between the 18th and 19th centuries, when the law prohibited the burial of suicides, foreigners, non-Catholics, or actors within city walls. In 1716, Pope Clement XI allowed burials at this site. Today, the cemetery is managed by a consortium of 14 embassies and has been a protected monument since 1910. The cemetery holds many remarkable tombs, including that of American sculptor William Wetmore Story and his wife Emmeline, adorned with the beautiful sculpture of the Weeping Angel from 1894. Here too lies August von Goethe, the son of the famed Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, as well as prominent English Romantic poets Percy Bysshe Shelley and John Keats, whose graves attract literature enthusiasts from around the world. Just beyond the cemetery rises the Pyramid of Cestius, a monumental tomb of Gaius Cestius Epulo, a Roman eques and praetor who died in 43 BCE. The pyramid served as his final resting place. Its interior burial chamber, however, remains closed to the public. In the 3rd century, the pyramid was incorporated into the Aurelian Walls, constructed under Emperor Aurelian as a defensive measure for the city. Thank you for joining us on this extraordinary walk. From the picturesque Tiber Island through the historic Forum Boarium the verdant Aventine Hill, to the tranquil non-Catholic cemetery and the majestic Pyramid of Cestius. We hope this walk has shown you another side of Rome, less traveled but equally fascinating and full of wonders. Rome's paths are endless, and we'll continue exploring them in future series. Join us in other cities. Europe is brimming with magic, its history turbulent, and its stories and legends one of a kind. Remember to subscribe and see you very soon.